Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to go a little bit longer than what you're used to when you're working with us at the Department of Labor, but that's because we have such a great and important topic. My name is Sean Egan. I'm the Deputy Director for Labor here in Michigan's Department of Labor. And for those of you that may have been following along, for the last year or so, we have been doing a lot of work focused on workplace mental health, including things that are happening in the workplace, affecting the workplace, and then individual behavioral health supports. As you're all aware, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And we're going to have a lot of extra material this month that we want to highlight and make sure that we're touching on issues that are important to people across our workplace, regardless of any other conditions or otherwise, to make sure that we're bringing you great information that you can use for yourselves and for your workplaces. And today is no different. You can enter questions at any time in the Q&A box at the top of your screen. We'll get to as many as we can at the end of the webinar today. We always get to a few and we leave some. It's not intentional, but that's just the way these go. And we're partnering today, really, really excited. We have a couple of webinars this month, and today and next week, we're partnering with Michigan's Women's Commission to really highlight issues that impact women in our workplaces and across our society, frankly. And we're going to be talking about menopause at work today. Now, certainly for me, you're going to hear this come up a little bit later as well. As a man, didn't really occur to me. So when I was having discussions with our Women's Commission folks, great idea, something that we need to address and talk about in our workplace and help try to elevate this issue for all of us in our workplaces and how it impacts women. So when it first came up in our discussions with the Women's Commission, I did the old duh, we have such a strong focus on all of these things impacting the workplace, and it might be different for different people. We talk about trauma, we talk about poverty, racial discrimination, and all of these things, and we really hadn't thought about things that can be gender different and how certain women are going to be impacted by certain things that I will never, ever have to think about. So I really felt silly, and but I'm so glad that it came up because we want to have this discussion. So for now, I'm going to turn it over to the CEO of the Michigan Women's Commission, Cheryl Bergman. Cheryl?
Thanks, Sean. It really is a pleasure to partner with you on this important webinar about how menopause affects women in the workplace. The Michigan Women's Commission was established by statute in 1968. We have 15 members appointed by the governor to serve 3-year terms, and our duties include surveying the women of Michigan, identifying the challenges they face, and recommending policy to address these challenges. When we recently surveyed women of Michigan, they told us economic security issues were their priorities: paid leave, pay equity, a path to higher wage jobs, and at the top of the list everywhere was affordable, accessible childcare. The Women's Commission is administering the My TriShare childcare program in 59 of our 83 counties to help address the childcare affordability for working families. And I mention this because I know there are a lot of employers on the call today, and I thought you may be interested in learning about TriShare. And if you are, check it out, michigan.gov/TriShare. But today we are talking about menopause, and we, the Women's Commission, are hearing more and more from women that menopause is a barrier to work. Times are changing. Women of my generation, we prided ourselves on doing anything a man can do while in heels and bleeding. And my mom, when I asked her what menopause was like for her, she said it was nothing. I don't even remember having problems. Well, my dad was behind her, rolling his eyes and shaking his head. So women don't think this way anymore, and nor should we. There are nearly 500,000 women between the ages of 45 and 55 in the Michigan workforce. The New York Times and Bloomberg both ran stories last week about the economic impact of menopause. They reported that according to a Mayo Clinic study, menopause costs working women an estimated $1.8 billion in lost working time per year. The U.S. economy loses $26.6 billion per year due to lost productivity and health expenses due to employees who are managing menopause symptoms. Roughly 15% of the survey participants had either missed work or cut back on hours due to menopause symptoms. Higher percentages of Black and Hispanic women reported adverse work outcomes compared to white women. There are ways that employers may address menopause in their workplaces, and we'll get to that. But first, we are going to hear from Satori Shakoor, who is opening up the conversation around menopause in the telling of her own journey. Satori is a storyteller, an artist, a social entrepreneur, and a 2017 Kresge Literary Arts Fellow. She received early recognition as a background singer when she toured with George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic, as one of the brides of Funkenstein. She expanded her performance career to include actor, comedian, and television comedy writer. In 2011, she began her professional career as a storyteller, touring the country as a Moth mainstage storyteller and host. Satori is the executive producer for the award-winning The Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers, which she founded in Detroit in 2012. She designs and facilitates storytelling workshops in the art and craft of storytelling for arts organizations, small businesses, corporations, and individuals. And she has created Confessions of a Menopausal Femme Fatale that opens in Detroit this July. She holds nothing back in her 75-minute solo stand-up storytelling concert. Satori's performance reflects on her 12-year journey through the change of life. And I am so excited to hand the virtual stage to Satori to get just a glimpse of her potent storytelling. Take it away, Satori.
Thank you. Well, I don't know how to remove my flyer, my poster, so that can you see me? Okay.
We can. We're all good.
Well, thank you. First of all, I just want to thank the Michigan Women's Commission and everyone that I've met who was so gracious for inviting me to be a part of your lives this afternoon. And I'm so excited to be presenting an excerpt from my solo stand-up storytelling concert around menopause and the confessions that come along with that. And I'm excited that the world, at least Michigan and the national conversation, has opened up to be inclusive of this very important life-changing change of life. And so I would love to present an excerpt from Confessions of a Menopausal Femme Fatale. This excerpt comes just after the very opening of the piece, when my husband and I are traveling to Honolulu just after 2 years after the worst of COVID. And I have a panic attack on the plane, but I'm not sure. And then I realized it's not a panic attack. I'm going back, recalling my life years ago and then telling the story of my journey of menopause. And so it starts with the plane taking off. It's the summer of '99. I'm living in Toronto at the time, and I am hot, 45, fit, with a six-pack, wearing crop tops, thinking, I got to show somebody. Biological clock is ticking, pushing me in directions I don't want to go. I'm a cougar, a man-eater, femme fatale. Hormones got me horny, feeling slutty, got me on Match.com, believing every man I meet is Mr. Right, and I should have his baby. It's terrifying. I don't want to get pregnant. One child is too much. I'm not a good mother, and I don't want no STDs and such. I'm on guard 24/7. No sex, condoms, the pill. I get a pregnancy test every month, whether I'm having sex or not. Then one day out of the blues, I hear me saying to myself, you ain't got no business showing your belly button at 45. What? Who said that? Huh? I'm betwixt and between. I start to notice things like, all of a sudden I'm hot. Jump out of my skin, hot, can't sleep. Night sweats, chills. I used to tweeze my facial hair. Now I'm wearing a beard. I'm not nice. Not anymore. I say exactly what's on my mind, and I'm becoming a bore. I've alienated my boss, coworkers, a few fake friends, and I'm shocked. I don't give a shit. Then I notice I'm telling my mother my deepest secrets and fears. I'm surprised we haven't seen eye to eye on anything in years. When did we get so close? I'm calling her up and saying, Ma, I feel sad. Sad? Why? Don't know. Don't feel like myself. One minute I'm laughing, the next I'm crying. Cramps so bad they make me vomit. I'm gushing buckets of blood, night sweats and tears. My bed sheets look like a crime scene, Mama. And at night, my heart beats real fast like it wants to beat right out of my chest. It's scary. Oh, you at the beginning of the change of life. I am? Well, that's what it sounds like to me. Well, is this how you felt when you were at the beginning of the change of life? I'll tell you the truth, I don't remember. Don't remember? My mother was going through menopause at the same time I'm going through puberty. I'm 14, she's 50. We clashed the day I get my period and grow a pair of 32Bs, which are trying to poke me in my eye while hers are trying to touch her toes. I'm rolling around on the bed, suffering from menstrual cramps with a hot water bottle to my belly. She's sticking her head in refrigerator freezers and out of car windows in the dead of winter talking about, woo, is it hot in here or is it just me? When I'm discovering boys and Odell is teaching me how to tongue kiss, I'm done with these here men folk. You hear me? Ain't now one of them no good. She's mad all the time, yelling, screaming, swinging her belt, knocking lamps off the living room table. She had everybody fooled. She looked like one of those nice, sweet, color purple church ladies. But I'm telling you, she was Dracula, sucked all the fun out of my teenage life. But at least with Dracula, you could prove it. Dracula left teeth marks. Mama didn't have any teeth. Ma, guess what? I'm the president of my senior class. Well, you know Abraham Lincoln got shot, don't you? All I'm saying is that I understood Norman Bates in that movie Psycho. Because if it wasn't for that 12-step program, adult children of crazy bitches, I'd be killing old black ladies in the shower. All I'm saying is that my little PMS, was no match for her menopausal mood swings. So my plan was to lay low, stay out of her way until it was time for me to escape to college.
Well, that was a fantastic story. I think I would ask for you to give you a moment to get out of character, but you're talking about you, so I don't have to wait for you to get out of character. But I think that's a fascinating introduction to the work that you're going to be doing with your show. And it's a really great kickoff for the discussion we're going to have between yourself and Cheryl Bergman as we continue to move forward. So with that little snippet that you gave us, what led you to create the one-woman show about menopause?
Well, when I was going through what they call the stage of perimenopause, I was having these symptoms. I was not recognizable to myself. I'm having the hot flashes. I can't sleep. I'm having mood swings. I'm alienating people, and I just don't recognize myself. So when I'm asking women around me of a certain age who are older than me, what could this be? They were either in denial, or they didn't remember, or they just wouldn't admit that they were of an age that they would even go through this. So it was kind of taboo to talk about it, a stigma. And as we are reacting or acting to a patriarchal male lens, we're performing to that. So we want to stay young, and we don't, we're not as relevant. We're not, if we can't have a baby, if our breasts aren't perky, it's kind of depressing, and we want to kind of keep it to ourselves. But we're younger now. We're not our mothers. We're not our mothers' mothers. We're vibrant, professional, accomplished women who are just getting started, with our professional expertise. And so we don't want to tuck it in. And I think that's why we want to be included. We want to be included because we brought all these skills. So there was no one talking about it. The only information was medical. I didn't understand the spiritual or the emotional or the hormonal journey we would go through. And so I didn't do anything. I didn't take any medicines, anything. I just was present as an actor and as an artist to my own condition and lived through it till I got on the other side where now I can talk about it. And I really think it's an important conversation for women to have so that we can exchange ideas about it. We can support each other in knowing, oh, what did you do that worked? What did you do that worked? Oh, and I understand that. Or that women who are our bosses or men who are our bosses on the workplace can know we're going through this period of change and can understand, because it's not like if we know about it, we can be responsible for it. And being responsible for it makes us better in any environment that we are in. We can, because I was waking up every day going, you're going to have to apologize to at least 3 people before the day is over, don't you? And it's just, so I wanted to provide this in a package of entertainment and to go through, it's a story of my 12-year journey through the change. And it just discusses a lot of life. You're confronting life at a certain period of your life, halfway through your life, if you're lucky, confronting issues, confronting the past, confronting things you didn't complete, things you regret. It's all coming to you like a gift to unpack and to be whole and free and to start to climb those mountains you never climbed.
Awesome. I'll hang on to that as a gift part for later in our discussion, because I'm sure that some people that are joining us today are going through this right now, and they're probably not seeing it as a gift yet. So we'll probably want to revisit that kind of concept. So Cheryl, can you share with us, we're talking about workplace, right? Can you share with us a bit how symptoms might affect your job and how it might change how people in menopause are present at work? And then if you wouldn't mind, you had kind of shared with me how when you talk about symptoms, they can be misconstrued for other conditions. Can you share a little bit of that as well?
Sure. Thanks, Sean. The symptoms, like Satori talked about, that most people think about are, the hot flashes and the painful periods or painful bleeds and heavy bleeds and irritability, that kind of thing. But some things, and Oprah Winfrey is actually talking about this right now. She's been openly talking about her experience. So she was having perimenopausal, like in her 40s, she's talking about she was having heart palpitations. She went to a couple different doctors. They finally gave her heart medication, and she was misdiagnosed. She finally got to a doctor who tested her hormones, and she started hormone replacement, which there are some myth busting to do around hormone replacement for women as well. It doesn't cause cancer, apparently, as we were all told that it did. And her symptoms went away. And also like depression. So women will get depressed in their mid 40s and are prescribed, medication for depression, when really maybe all they need is hormone replacement. And that, Oprah said that took care of her issues, and she felt fantastic after that. And I just am wondering how many women are misdiagnosed every day when it could be just hormonal. And there's a lot of other, there was a woman actually from Kalamazoo who was quoted in the New York Times story that ran this week or last week. And she was a librarian, head librarian in Kalamazoo. And she started getting migraines so badly that she had to leave her job. So she's no longer a librarian, but she was actually quoted in Kalamazoo. So that's how it can show up. And sometimes you don't know what it is. So one thing I would encourage any women who are listening, if you're having any of these kind of symptoms and you're in your 40s or early 50s, get your hormones checked. I'm not a doctor, but it's just a suggestion.
Okay. So in the workplace too, and Satori, you had shared like you're I believe that I'm going to phrase this correctly. I'm the guy on the call. So if I get this wrong, feel free to correct me, please. You completed your journey. So during your journey, like how did menopause impact the way that you thought about your job or your career overall?
Well, I was, you'll hear in my play that I tell my mother how I'm scared. She wants to know why I'm scared. And I said, because I'm scared that I'll be stuck in this dead end life, in this dead end job, because I was doing a job that I didn't want to do. I'm an artist. I was in the wrong place, but you have to make money. And sometimes women are in the right place, but they're not advancing. They're not. And so there's a feeling of being stuck. And there's resentment. There's just disgruntledness. You don't want to give your best. I ended up, just taking the leap to do what I love to do. But there are so many stories of women who just in their 50s start painting and now selling paintings for $10,000, $20,000. They wake up and they discover, oh, I'm lesbian. I like women. Or, it comes a time when it's very powerful. That's why I say it's a gift, because it comes and it says to you, what's the truth? Maybe this job, this seat that you're taking up is meant for someone else, and you're supposed to go out there and knit or start your own company or do all the things, write a play. Yeah, so what it just made me know I'm not in the right place, and I'm afraid. Is it too late? So it's a gift and a curse at the same time. But but it also made me very honest. I would go into my boss, and they would have a policy. No, you can't take any more sick days. And I'm an artist. I'm a temp for a reason. I don't get any benefits, no health, anything. So I can take off to do auditions, or when I book a film, I can take that day. And I had the courage. At that age, you have the courage. You start to speak up and advocate for yourself. So I went into my boss, and I sat down and I said, I know that you don't want us to take any sick days or days off. I said, but I just booked a film. You did? Yeah. I said, I'm going to make more in one day than I'll make working a whole week here. And he goes, you are? And I said, yeah, you don't want us to take off. I said, the reason I'm taking off, the reason I'm a temp. So I started communicating, not being afraid of my boss, but really having my boss be on my side. And he says, sure, you can take off. Tell me how the film is, and and this was a male. And so it opened up something, but sometimes we're afraid to go talk to men because we don't think they're going to understand. And even if they don't understand, I think that any human being in a male meat body or a female meat body or any human body can appreciate honesty, can appreciate sharing. And then, giving him the opportunity to say, yes, I can go, or no, I can stay. But being a temp, I knew that if he said, no, you can't go, I would call my temp agency and say, I'm going to do this film on Friday. Can you find me another temp job? So you have to know what you're willing to lose. And this is just my story. I'm not saying everybody who's working hates their job or anything like that. I didn't hate my job. I liked the people, and my job wasn't that hard. I just was in the wrong place. So I think it's all right to tell men what's going on with you. Men tell me what's going on with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate that. And Cheryl, I'm going to tee up one that just to keep you on your toes. So Satori kind of talked about how this transition for her kind of led her to the honesty within herself to just take that leap and transition right out of that type of work and into her art, which is awesome, incredibly brave, and glad you did it. But Cheryl, there's a lot of professional women, and when we look at your earnings over your working career, you're really kind of always gradually increasing a little bit. And for all of us, women or men, pretty much the time period you're talking about for menopause is your peak earning potential. And how do you think this transition for those women that feel like they're in the right place, how do you think that impacts them and their work and how they feel about their work?
Well, I think that it can be tough. I mean, just from my own experience, when I was, really in the thick of the menopause, it was you know, it was tough. It was tough. I was in a very active role. I had a job that was go, go, go. I didn't tell anybody, and I had a fantastic woman as a boss, and I just didn't tell anybody. And I think we've got to change that. Like I should have spoken up in retrospect. I should have taken some time when I needed to, when things were, when it was so painful, and I just kept pushing through. And, you know, there needs to be a culture change in the way we all think. And we need to be open to the fact that, you know, women lead differently and we have different energy cycles than men. And this affects women in the workplace. From the 9-to-5 workday that was built really to suit men's energy levels and hormone swings. There's a lot of research on that, to the fact that women bear the majority of child and family caregiving, which Satori touched upon, and that when men become fathers, they usually get a boost in salary, and while mothers often experience a decrease in their earning potential. And, you know, that, like you said, in menopausal women are really usually right in their highest earning. And we need to talk about it. And I'm so glad that we're having this conversation today, because these are the kind of conversations that we need to have with our colleagues, and in order to make sure that women have the space and the help that they need to be their full, come to work with their full potential and be their fullest selves and contribute as much as they possibly can. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. And it leads me to the next one. So I have one more thought that I would like to try to get out before we transition into the Q&A, and certainly open up for any feedback from you too, Satori, but because you had mentioned it, you became more honest, talked with your employer, your boss, said, this is what I do. We're able to kind of get those types of accommodation for what you were trying to accomplish. Cheryl, do you have other thoughts on what employers could or should do to accommodate menopause symptoms?
Sure. And these aren't necessarily my thoughts. These are things that other, you know, professional human resources agencies are suggesting. So it's not brand new. There are some employers, I'm sure, who are putting these types of things in place, but things like having a menopause, writing out and developing a menopause protocol. So a written policy that is communicated with all employees, which includes, it makes employees feel safe coming forward and explains menopause symptoms, provides this is really important, and Satori touched on this, provide a formal route for employees to ask for menopausal support. So maybe if your direct support or your direct supervisor is a man, maybe there's another, and you don't feel comfortable necessarily, maybe there's another woman that you can go and talk to, but providing that formal route. And then provide external and internal resources around menopause education and support. Some countries, I don't know that we'll ever get there, maybe, like Spain just introduced menstrual leave in the country. So that's really progressive. And just be open to workplace changes, flexible work schedule, remote work schedules, keeping the office a little bit cooler where the women are working, allowing time for frequent breaks for bathroom visits and just time to cool off and be by yourself. If uniforms are required, having extra uniforms available for women, maybe lighter, thinner uniforms to help with the overheating, free menstrual products in the workplace bathrooms. Those are some of the things that they talk about. And you know, this is pretty cool. Find out if your insurance provider has tools or resources. Like, for example, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan and the Blue Care Network offer a digital care app to help members in menopause. So those are things, if employers' insurers offer those types of supports, they should share those. So those are just a few things that can help.
Yeah, I think too that as women, we carry a lot of embarrassment, shame around our natural bodily and hormonal journeys. We hide things. We don't want to tell things. We don't want to age. We don't, you know, there's so many, it's so tight. So when I talk about a gift, I'm just saying that the box is too small for the gift that is containing. And so if we can open up and talk about it and be free to talk about it and share, just like Cheryl is sharing all of these different things, what they're doing in Spain and all these places, we can take ideas and then not be embarrassed, just be a human being. And this is what we're going through. And this is how we can get support. And this is how we can be more effective, more productive, happy, and laugh about what it is to be human.
Yeah, and I think as a leader, we know statistically that across all companies and all business types, leadership still is typically men, typically white men. And like I said at the outset, having that moment of like, duh, why didn't I think of that? Because this is important. I think it's okay as a man to say, I will never understand this, but I don't have to diminish it, right? I just need to trust it, understand it, and listen to the folks that are around me that are experiencing this and try to be a good human being, as you said, Satori. So I think that's a nice segue over to the Q&A. Going to turn it over to Erica Queeley from our communications team to help facilitate that.
Thank you, everyone. And before I dive into the Q&A, we'll put a reminder. There's a chat function here. Go ahead and drop your questions in. We'll try to get to as many as we can. If I spent the time reading the number of thank yous, the messages about how great Satori's presentation was, and how people are feeling seen, we would use up the entire Q&A time. So just know, everyone, this seemed to have really resonated with those watching us today. But the first question, Satori, for you, people are wondering how they can follow along and learn more about your work. Oh, you are on mute. It gets us every time.
About this play?
I believe so.
Okay.
Or other resources you want to share that you're involved with.
Well, am I still muted?
Nope, you're good.
Okay, so I'm the artistic director for the Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers. We produce monthly events at the Mary Grove Theater. You can follow me at satorishakoor.com or twistedtellers.com, and I'm sure you'll provide all of these links. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook. The show is going to be at Detroit Public Theater in Midtown on 3rd, July 21st, 22nd, 23rd. It will be, I'm filming it because I'm making a film out of this, so it can be released into the world. And it's a solo performance. It's a concert, stand-up storytelling concert. So it's a 75, 80-minute show. And we're doing 3 performances. All 3 will be filmed. I also host Detroit Performs Live from Mary Grove on PBS, Detroit Public Television. And so you can find me anywhere. And I'll be talking about this. We're doing little fundraisers around Detroit where we're bringing groups of women together. And one of our producers, Dr. Rose Moten, who is a clinical psychologist, and we also have an MD. We do little fundraisers. I do an excerpt from my play. And Dr. Rose Moten speaks about the psychological symptoms. The medical doctor talks about it, and then we go into a deep dive discussion around menopause, and women can't even leave. They're laughing, they're sharing, and so we want to create the future in those little fundraisers. How does it look for women to talk about this and to hear the information and the joy and just all of the stories is so wonderful to know that, because 2 million women come into menopause every year. Nobody's talking to them. That's added to all of it, because there has never been a time in history that we know of that this many women have lived this long. Women have died earlier. So now we're living past menopause and during menopause. So it's like, oh, what's this, So yeah, so please follow me, and the Women's Commission will have links, but I'm on Facebook, Satori Shakoor, Twitter, all of those places, and tickets will be going on sale very soon for the show. So we hope to see you at the show. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing all that information. The next 2 questions I want to touch on, because they're somewhat related. do you have recommendations for a place that does hormone testing? And do you know if this is covered by insurance? Now, I know none of us on the call today are in the healthcare field, not really our specialty, but I'll share a personal story is that just this March, 6 days after my 44th birthday, actually, I got my first hot flash and I thought, what on earth is going on? After a couple of days, it hit me. I've been going to my doctor for over a year now with other symptoms. They couldn't, they were like, oh, you seem fine. So I did go to my primary care provider and they ordered a simple blood test and I got my hormone levels back and confirmed it was perimenopause stage. So for me, going to my normal healthcare provider, a simple blood test in mine, it's, different for everybody in their insurance. Mine was covered. So that I would just like to share is an option and some background, but if any of them, I don't know, Satori or Cheryl, if you have other resources to share that you're aware of?
I didn't take any medications or anything. I wanted to feel everything as an artist. But I would say when you find that first gray hair, that's when you should start to, and whether you find it on your head or somewhere else. That's the moment you should start going, maybe I start preparing,
Yes. All right. We've got another question here. Hormone therapy has worked wonders for me. Hormones have been around a long time. How can we get the pharmaceutical industry to stop charging ridiculous amounts of money for this treatment? Even generics are expensive for estrogen and progesterone. Cheryl, are you aware of any work in terms of like policy change or advocacy or other thoughts on addressing the pharmaceutical costs?
I'm not aware, but I'll be looking into that because that is something I'm really interested in hearing. And I didn't take any hormone replacement either, but I can guess that it's very expensive and maybe your insurance covers it. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it covers part of it depending on your insurance. And hopefully the more we talk about menopause and hormone replacement, etc., the more pressure there's put on and the more regular this becomes that women are going to their physicians and saying, test my hormone levels. And if I need hormone replacement, I want it. And maybe we can do some advocacy around cost for sure.
Thank you. All right, our next question is, as an employer, how do you address and work with someone who is having memory issues due to the symptoms of menopause and it causes work errors repeatedly when you know this could happen for a long period of time? Is that something, Cheryl, you want to touch on?
Yeah, I can touch on it. That's an interesting question. I think that it has to be confronted and talked about and encouraging this person to take care of themselves and perhaps hormone replacement is an option for them, or maybe there are other things that can help. Again, not a doctor, but encouraging that they seek medical treatment in the most loving way possible. That's a tough thing to address, but yeah, that's what I would say.
I wouldn't mind jumping in there a little bit either, Erica, and to tag on with Cheryl a little bit. I think first and foremost, as I mentioned, kind of as a man, I want to understand this thing. And I'm, giving this employer the benefit of the doubt on the information that they had. We also don't want to assume that it's menopause, right? That just because a woman's in a certain age range or something like that, seeing these types of symptoms automatically means that it's some kind of, they might not even be in the journey yet, right? I don't know. I mean, we don't know. So I think we want to really be frank and open with those discussions, because when we talk about through our workplace mental health work and our report, when we talk about burnout, anxiety, depression, brain fog, weariness, forgetfulness, all of those things are in there too. So while it is a symptom of menopause, potentially, as Cheryl discussed, there could be other situations going on at work that are causing that person to have some challenges. Well, first and foremost, I think is Cheryl is right, is start the discussion and make sure that the person understands that you're seeing these types of things. And if that's one of the things that the employee is comfortable sharing is that, well, I'm going through menopause, you've probably heard enough today to say, well, I heard this great presentation. It talked about talking with your doctor about potential hormone replacement and how that can alleviate some of those symptoms and finding ways to manage that in that way. So definitely the discussion is the right spot, but make sure you're thinking about and talking with that employee about, like, are there other things going on here that might be causing these same kinds of challenges?
Great reminder that there are a variety of workplace mental health issues that need to be addressed and talked about. So with that, I'm going to move into the next question asking, how do we get this accepted as a disability where women can get paid when they need time off? And I'm going to add to that one because I saw another question that talked about whether or not FMLA could be used in this situation. Sean, do you have thoughts on that in terms of any of the research your team has done?
Yeah, sure. So FMLA is a Department of Labor enforced standard. So when I talk about this, my disclaimer is this is not legal advice. But for both the concept of disability or FMLA, they're related to a serious health condition, and that's going to rely on the guidance of your physician. So under FMLA, things like migraines, where you need to be off because you're dealing with migraines, have been considered covered by FMLA. It's a case-specific scenario, so you'd want to look at that. But even in a disability program, if your medical provider is telling you that you need to be off of work because of a medical condition, menopause being, causing those symptoms or that debilitating condition, you may be eligible. So we can't tell you perfectly that it all fits because it is a case-by-case situation. But if your medical provider is involved, as has been recommended, and it's causing you to be unable to work because of those symptoms or the pain or migraines or whatever it is, those might be covered under those types of programs.
All right, and I'm gonna close us out with one last question from Nick. I want to thank him as a male employer for chiming in and asking a question. As a male employer, small business, how do we even approach the subject without being sexist or out of touch or offensive? Cheryl, can you start us off on there? I think you'd have some good advice.
Yeah, I'll try. Thank you for that question. I honestly think one of the best things that an employer, even with a small business, can do is put together a formal menopause protocol so that it's for all employees. So it's obviously not just for the women, it's for the men too. So they understand what some of the symptoms could be and what some of the give them some of the resources, external and internal, that can help them, and just make it a common, open thing that you talk about, and make Nick, obviously you're a man, make sure that there is a way for your women who work with you or for you, if they may not feel comfortable going to you or to their male supervisor, make sure that there's another route for them, someone else, a woman in the operation or even outside of the operation, that they could take their concerns to. But I think just getting it out in the open and talking about it as a normal, not every day, but for some women, almost every day kind of situation. So just normalizing it, normalizing the conversations.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that question too. I think it's important to this isn't funny. Historically it was kind of like this would be a joke in some places, right? That so-and-so is just upset because they're going through menopause. You would hear those types of things, and that's not acceptable. And it wasn't acceptable then, it's not acceptable now. So just that continuing to be open. So one last question for both of you. You're going to have to be brief, and I'll start with you, Satori. So what's the number one thing that and I'm not using the middle-aged part, but I, as a white guy and a man in executive leadership, should take away from this conversation? Satori?
That listening is a revolutionary act. Being open, granting another person experience, and having an open door policy, encouraging, and the other responsibilities on the woman. Speak up, so that the man can extend that kind of grace and understanding and listening to you. That's what I would say.
Perfect. Thank you. Cheryl?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo that. And yeah, just be open, be careful about and call it out when you hear it. Sean, thank you for just saying what you just said about, there can be some really misogynistic jokes and comments and talks around women in menopause and going through menopause. So I'm so grateful for you to call that out, and call it out if you hear it. And again, I totally agree with what Satori said about it's on women. We got to come out of our shells and this is just real life. This is nothing to be ashamed of, or it's to be celebrated, right, Satori? It's to be celebrated. So, and Sean, thank you for being one of those amazing male allies. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much, Cheryl. I think we're at time, and I just want to thank Cheryl and the Women's Commission so much for helping to elevate this issue. Satori, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story, as well as being out there in the public talking about this journey and what it means and how it feels, and helping everybody, women in particular, but also me, understand kind of how this is working and how it goes, because I'll never have to experience it. Thank you all for the questions that you had today. Great questions, great stories in the chat. We appreciate you thanking us, but we love doing it. This webinar and the resources mentioned above will be available on our website, probably at the Women's Commission and at our Michigan.gov Workplace Mental Health. They'll be emailed out to our subscribers. So if you haven't done that, go to our Workplace Mental Health page and click the sign up, and we'll make sure that you're on there. And we really, really appreciate all of you taking the time for this important discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you.